speaker and minister, a relationship coach, three-time national pageant title holder, including Miss America 2019 to 2021. So welcome, Joanna Hairabedian. There it is.
You
Joanna
got it.
Hairabedian
That's awesome.
to Counter Narrative. Yes, we're so happy to have you on Valentine's Day when we can talk about relationships that really matter, that we really want to nurture.
Well, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Christy. I just want to say you're beautiful inside and out. And I thank you for the work that you're doing because it is changing lives, it is impacting people. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to change one heart at a time and one mind at a time.
So when did you get the, thank you for that, by the way, when did you get the idea to write this book? What got you into relationship coaching?
Well, a teacher is usually the student first, and I graduated from the University of Ouch, that hurt, now what, in the whole romance arena. And so I married, and we'll go cliche for teaching purposes, but I married Mr. Wrong the first time. And when the day after we were married, I heard the words, "I don't love you." And that was the beginning of hell, and my world crumbled from there. And so that didn't work out, and I went through some very difficult things there. And so I found myself on the floor, that ugly cry moment that we girls do, and I cried out to God and I said, "How did I end up in this mess? My dreams are shattered. I thought you told me to marry this guy, and he's so broken, and all these terrible things happened." And I said, "Hold up a mirror to my face and show me how this happened." And God did. I gave myself permission. I practiced courage to allow the Lord to show me my heart, to understand, first of all, why I attracted a man who was broken like that. Second of all, why I married him. And that was the beginning of my journey, Christy, and brings us to here today. And as I became healed in these areas, and I began to see that there were 7 core principles, mistakes that women made, I have made every single one of them. And so in my book, I'm very candid and I share my journey, and I'm doing this to help women, to give you hope. Because when you have a marriage, you just quoted all the stats. We've been through all the trauma. The divorce rates are increased by 34%. So we have a problem, but we also need to have hope, and we have a solution, and we have to get back to the basics. So if I was making these mistakes before the whole pandemic and everything happened, now we have this compounded issue, then it's vital for us to be able to get to the core and understand, what are we doing on the inside? And I had to look at, what was my contribution to the failure of the first marriage? Yes, he did all these bad things, and it doesn't excuse anything that he did, but I had to take responsibility and begin to look at myself. And I've seen so many women make the same mistakes that I do, good friends and women that I meet in ministry and when in my travels and everything. And I realized there's a common component. I've had women come to me, I need prayer because I've been married for 25 years and my husband says he doesn't love me anymore. Well, when you read 7mistakesbook.com, you're going to understand, and things are going to be revealed to you, why that can happen. Now, she didn't know, she was clueless and didn't understand, and she wasn't open to coaching. And so, the door was shut there. And so it's so important for us to be open to understand what we're doing, because if we don't know what we're doing, how can we change it? And it's all about creating awareness and having the courage to practice that change.
Can you tease like what one major mistake is that you see that a lot of women make?
Well, yes. One of them that I will touch on is what I call a superhero deactivator. Now, every guy in him, the Lord, God's created men to, want to be the hero. They want to take care of the house. They want to provide and everything like that. But what can happen with couples, and or even, you're dating somebody, is we can start to nitpick the guy. And then we start fault finding, especially if you've been in a relationship for a long time, you know what his faults are, but then that's all that becomes the focus. And I'm not just, blaming women. This is not about bashing women. It's about looking at one side of the coin, which is women, and then the other side of the coin is men. And we are each 100% responsible for our actions and our choices. So we're looking at the female side for this moment. And so what happens, I'll give you a classic example. Your husband, your boyfriend, he's working hard all day. He comes home. And then what are the first things he often hears? "Why are you home so late?" In that tone. And how does then he respond? He thinks to himself, she doesn't appreciate anything that I'm doing. I had to struggle with this, and I had to battle this, and I had to fight that. And then I come home, and then my wife says to me, "Why are you home so late again?" And so you see how that is a simple little thing. That's a superhero deactivator. And so when David and I, my husband, David, when we were dating, we were in a relationship, we were courting, and we were on the phone. And I had two choices on how I could handle this scenario. And this is a classic, a very practical example of a superhero deactivator. So we were on the phone and he was talking, and he's a minister. And so he said, "Oh, hang on a second. Let me just take this call and I'll get right back on the phone." So I was left on the eternal hold. And so I got irritated. I thought, okay, well, I'm going to let this go for now. And then we had another conversation at a different time. And then the same thing happened again. So now this was becoming a habit, a pattern. And so I took my frustration to God, because now I had the skills. I've learned it for the last, 16 years that I made all these mistakes being single. And so I took it to God and I said, "Look, here, I'm irritated. Help me in my feelings and show me how to talk to David." So we had our next conversation and we were both in a good space, because timing is everything. And I said, "David, can I ask you a question?" And he said, "Sure." I said, "I know you would never intentionally dishonor or disrespect me." And he said, "Oh, no, I wouldn't." And I said, "The next time we're on a call and you have to take this call, I totally get it. But can you please just let me know that you need to just hop off the call and you'll call me back later? This way, I'm not left on an eternal hold and my time, I feel disrespected." And he immediately said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you realized that I was going to have to pop off the phone." So the other old way that I would have handled that in the past would have been, "You're so rude. I can't believe you left me on hold again. This has happened twice already." Right? So you see how that is a superhero deactivator? It's a simple thing, but little keys unlock big doors, and big doors swing on small hinges, as my husband says. And so for him, now we were just dating at that time. So as a healthy, emotionally healthy guy, if I had reacted with that snarky tone and accused him, he would have been red flag, up, not interested in her, right? So I would have repelled that good man. And vice versa. If he had not responded in a way where he respected what I said it in a nice way, it's very respectful. If he hadn't honored that, then that would have been my red flag. Well, if he's doing this now before we're married, that's not going to change after we're married. So that would have been my red flag. But we both handled it in this way. And so therefore, we had that mutual respect and that mutual honor in how we spoke to each other. And so these are some of the principles that I teach and I highlight. And the book is also created as a workbook so that you can reflect, because I give you thought-provoking questions to make you think, to help create that awareness so that you can have the happily ever after. You can attract and keep that man, keep that marriage, or restore your marriage if it's, you're disconnected at the moment.
One of the things that you hear that has really resonated with me, both in controlling our emotions with getting frustrated about what we see happening in the world and all of that, to keep it in check. It is so important to have that self-discovery, because we cannot control what's happening in the outside of us. We cannot
Right.
control what someone else is doing, or how they're treating us necessarily. We can only control ourselves, and being the best version of ourselves, and how we
Mhm.
treat others. So I mean, it is so important. And to that end, because I know that you're a woman of faith, how important is just being able to surrender all of it to God, when it comes to relationships.
It's vital. I mean, that was my first step of surrender. After being divorced from Mr. Wrong and my heart being broken and everything else, I cried out to God in utter total surrender. I love Jeremiah 29:11-13, which says, "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." And this is the key right here. "And as you seek me with all your heart, I will be found by you, says the Lord." So all your heart means surrendering all your emotions. God is the best psychotherapist in the absolute universe. He's the best shrink I've ever had, because I can surrender all of my emotions to him first. And if more couples, if more women and men learned how to do that first before they have a crucial conversation, I promise you the results would be way different. David and I have been happily married. Our marriage just gets better and better every year. Our marriage blossoms and it grows. Why? Because I bring in the skills that is needed, and he responds accordingly. And he also has those, emotional skills as well. And so when you have two healthy people that have those skills, we can hash it out, but we can hash it out in a way that is going to bring reconciliation, reconnection, and is not going to push each other away and then get caught up in this terrible hamster wheel. You did this and you did that, and you did this and you did that. It breaks all that cycle. And those are the principles that I talk about in 7 mistakes in book.com. So
Yeah, and I mean, it is obviously in complete contrast to what the world tells you. You constantly hear like, do what's best for you, or is this relationship serving you? These are in contrast to the biblical way that we should view relationships and the world, with the servant heart, and not thinking about what's in it for me, but what we can bring to the table. So how do you think that just society's messaging affects relationships?
oh, I think it plays a big part, especially in the season that we're at. There is in the media such a campaign to emasculate men, to create this whole female dominance. You're going to dominate. He's going to, surrender to you. Yes, dear. Yes, dear. Yes, dear. And men have been emasculated, and this is partly why this book is really pivotal for such a time as this, because little programming. I'll give you a perfect example. This week I was on Facebook, and my friend who loves her husband, she didn't realize she was doing this, but it's part of that media programming and stereotyping. And so she posted a meme. It's supposed to be funny, but it said, "Well, any defaults your kids have, that's your husband's fault." So you see how subliminal that is, and how often have we heard, "Happy wife, happy life." Well, that's not true, especially for the woman who's been married 15, 20 years and her husband says, "I don't love you anymore and I'm divorcing you," right? She's not a happy wife anymore. It should be happy spouse, happy house, because now that implies both partners make each other happy, and then you will have a happy house and your kids will see an example of a marriage that is good and healthy.
Absolutely.
So
I
we
mean,
have
I know that just society's messaging was affirming in a difficult season in my life. Like, I had a first marriage, got married very young, and and when I was thrust into having to be a single mom, I had the affirmation I needed from society telling me like, "You're doing it all. You can do it all on your own," and like I felt strong and independent, but meanwhile, like I was crumbling. Like, I needed a helper. The Bible says that we need a helper just as much as the man needs a helper. We need a helper too. And I mean, it's what's best for our kids and everything else. And for God's grace, he brought me a good man, and a good faithful man, a spiritual leader, which is what
right,
I really needed.
exactly.
Not just a good man, a spiritual
Yeah, no,
leader who
faithful,
person that
exactly.
loves
Yeah.
the Lord. So, and that's what I really needed. But yeah, I mean, it's just the messaging. It can feel good, but it's so harmful for you as a person, right?
Well, and that's what it also, that attitude, like how many times as women does a man open the door for us in a store and we say, "Oh, I can get that myself." It's this inability to receive and allow someone to give you a gift. And I in 7 Mistakes book, because if we can't even receive something as simple as that, or I was the queen of this, I was rejecting a compliment until God showed me this vision, and I was preparing a beautiful bouquet of flowers from my really, and I put all this thought into the bouquet, and then I hand her the bouquet, looks at the bouquet, and she said it, and she snatches it out of my hand, and she slaps me in the petals fly. And I look at her like, oh, in shock. And then I'm angry and dejected. And the Lord showed me this is how I made their act of kindness or their compliment, which was the gift that was represented in those flowers. And so we're taught we're going to be strong and we're going to be independent and we're going to dominate. Well, is it? All you have to do is look at the statistics, and it's blocking our blessings, and it's pushing away what someone wants to do for you. So when you do meet a man who's a good man and he wants to do something that will open the door for you, but you're reading that, you've now blessing that God has for you. And then what happens? We cry and go, "How come you're not answering prayers, God?" I used to do that. And that's not God's plan. And so, like you said, we were created a man and a woman worship together. Adam and Eve, they were put in the garden to tend the garden together. That's what they did.
Yeah.
And so
And we
that's the
don't,
plan.
as the women, we let's not sabotage something else. Let's take a lesson from Eve. Like, let's not sabotage this
Right.
for ourselves. So I want to make sure that people go and check out your book. I'm going to have a link to the book in the description box below so people can check it out, check out your website very easily. But thank you so much for this very timely message on how to start at home and foster and protect our relationships. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy, for having me on. It's been an honor. Thank you so much.